And we welcome you back to another edition of In the Box with Willie Ramirez, Professional Hockey Writers Association, bringing you all the news from the NHL. Well, just, you know what? The hockey news, if you will. Coincidentally, the hockey news features writer and senior contributor for Forbes, Carol Schram, joining us today. Carol, thanks for jumping in the box.
Oh, glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Willie.
Absolutely. A lot of things going on. You cover on a national basis for the hockey news, not necessarily just one beat. Let's start right now with the league-leading Vancouver Canucks. A bit of a dip, 3 straight losses. First time this year that they've lost back-to-back-to-back. What's going on with the Canucks? Is it that typical NHL lull that every team goes through?
I guess we will have to see. In the recent history of the Canucks, the back-to-back-to-back losses is a lot more familiar than what's happened for the rest of this year. So whether these guys need to sort of get this out of their system, figure out how to address the adversity, get themselves back on track, or if the words of the doubters from earlier in the season that there was a lot of high shooting percentages and a lot of puck luck and a lot of schedule advantages. I don't know yet which way it's going to go, but suddenly the race in the standings is a lot tighter than it was, and there's some teams creeping up in the East, especially, but Florida, oh my God, yeah. And some teams in the West starting to make a move as well. Still 10 points ahead of your Vegas Golden Knights as we talked. So at this point, it seems like they should be able to get it turned around and get to hold on to first place.
I find it interesting, you look at a team like Vancouver, they're making a run. Everybody's shocked that we're in February, we're past the All-Star break, and they're still atop the league, right? With the way that they had been playing minus these 3 losses. But people hold their history. Oh, here they come. It'd be like if Buffalo was in this situation and everybody bracing for a collapse, rather than embracing what they are actually doing and be optimistic. It's all of a sudden, are we starting to see pessimism among the Vancouver fans?
Oh yeah, the scars run deep in this city. So the first half, nobody is accustomed to just feeling happy and positive about the team. So it just is like the first natural reaction as soon as something goes wrong. It's like, oh, we know what this feels like. This is what we signed up for almost.
You know what they're lacking, Carol?
What?
They're lacking loyalty. Have loyalty these days. A lot of people, a lot of industries, whether it's sports, media, just in general, I think 2024, this new era, lacking a lot of loyalty. Let's move on. Elias Lindholm acquisition, pretty high price tag. If he ends up being a rental, touch upon that.
Again, basically the dip here has sort of unfortunately coincided with Elias's arrival in town. And again, if you look back at the history of the Canucks and Canucks fans, you have to go back to sort of the early 2000s to see when they were spending 2nd and 3rd round draft picks on the regular to try to make a playoff run. And so you start thinking back on the Keith Carneys and the Brian Smolinskis of the world that the Canucks picked up then and never sort of got past the first round. So for me personally, I would rather see how the Lindholm thing plays out than do that sign and trade thing where they immediately ink him to an 8-year deal before he's even played a game with the team. If it ends up that it's not a good fit for either side, then everybody just shakes hands and moves on. But having given up a first round pick, even though it'll be a late first rounder, plus the defense prospect Hunter Brzeskevich is tearing up the OHL. So that's one that people were a little bit sad to see him go.
It'll be interesting to keep an eye on that situation. Another situation, Phil Kessel, right? We saw him here in Las Vegas, the Iron Man. He has a past relationship, obviously, with Rick Tocchet. Where are we with this in terms of the conversation? Is this a heavy conversation piece?
It is a heavy conversation piece. I think there's a strong sentimental vote in town that people like the idea of, sort of what Kessel embodies. And the fact that he's almost like a hockey anti-hero is sort of appealing to a lot of people. Yeah. the Tocchet thing is super interesting because, you know, he was able to sort of get the best out of Kessel in Pittsburgh when he was the assistant coach there, and then he had him when he was coaching in Arizona as well. Now,
Yeah.
what we've seen from Tocchet since he's been here is that he has good relationships with everybody. Like, Kessel may love Tocchet as like one of his top 5 guys, but Tocchet has like 200 guys like that relate to him in that same way, because he really seems to know how to communicate with people, whether that's his players or other coaches or guys he used to play with or Wayne Gretzky or whoever. Like, Tocchet's friends
Yeah.
with everyone. So um, he's not going to do anything or advocate for anything that's going to upset the chemistry of the team and where things have gotten so far. And he certainly, you know, pushes work ethic and team first and all that kind of thing. So I don't see him advocating for Kessel if he thinks it's good that Kessel would disrupt any of those things. But, you know, he's supposed to be a great locker room guy, and he has 3 Stanley Cups.
How much do you think the whole Ironman streak, because if he's not active, the streak's intact. If he's active, how much does that play a role? Like, does he have to have that conversation like, hey, we can, if we do this to have you in the locker room, to have you aboard, you're going to be scratched. We're going to bring you when we need you. I mean, do you think that that has to be a topic of conversation? Because, you know, in a sense, you sort of have to decide whether or not that means something, no?
Earlier in the year, when I heard that Kessel was looking for opportunities, I heard that he had said the streak, I'm okay about the streak. And so I assume that that is still sort of the situation. You know, it's been 10 months now since he played, and no offense to Phil and his legacy, but I think that if he does want to get back onto an NHL team, he's not really in a position to be calling that shot right now.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Let's close on this fun story. We saw Jaromir Jagr take the ice. You did a piece on he's only the third player in Penguins history, right? Franchise history. Have his number retired. Talk a little bit about how special that is. Obviously, what he means to this franchise and to the league itself. But then also, who's next for Pittsburgh? Because I have an idea of who I might think it might be, and he could have a number retired here in Vegas too. I don't know. Your thoughts?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, not quite there yet, but
Not yet.
we don't have to race that one on. In the story, I talked about Fleury, and it's funny because his actual numbers in Pittsburgh are not all that great. As you know, his Vezina came in Vegas. His numbers in Vegas were way better than they were in Pittsburgh. And even the way that things sort of ended, where he and Matt Murray were kind of in that weird limbo state in goal, even as they were winning the cups. It's a funny legacy for Fleury, but I also feel like he's so beloved that, you know, it's something that could end up happening down the road. My personal choice for the guy who should be next in line already has his number in the rafters in Carolina, and is busy making things go in the Pacific Northwest right now. I think Ron Francis played a huge role in the 90s with the Penguins, especially during the times that Mario Lemieux was out, when he was dealing with his back issues and his cancer issues and all the other things. Francis was kind of the other leader that made a lot of things happen. So that's who my vote would go to.
And then just on Jagr, just what he's, you know, his sort of what he's meant to younger players, to the franchise, and to the league itself.
I'll actually share an anecdote with you if that's all right.
Yep.
I had the privilege of covering the 2015 World Championship in Prague, and that was the last international tournament that Jagr played for Czech Republic. And so it was basically the Jagr Fest. The Czechs are so hockey mad anyways. The whole city was just like enthralled with everything that was going on with World Championship. And if you were walking down the street when one of the Czech games was on, there would be no people outside. Like, everyone was either at the rink watching the game, inside watching the game. You could hear the cheers coming from the open windows when a goal was scored, the whole thing. It was just absolutely phenomenal. They did make it to the playoff round, ended up losing in the bronze medal game to USA. But those two, the quarterfinal or the semifinal and the bronze medal game, the roar and the appreciation that the Czech fans showed for him, the chanting and everything else. Like, the Europeans get up for a game anyways, and having the opportunity to see that and feel it and witness it. And of course, he was still named MVP, even though they came fourth. And nobody had a problem with that. It just is sort of one example of one area of hockey that he has touched so deeply.
Well, you talk about the community chiming in and the neighborhoods, everything. I don't know if you can hear it. I got dogs barking in the background, so possibly they're barking to your anecdote and enjoy it. Carol, I appreciate you jumping in the box, talking about a number of things. We're going to see what happens with Vancouver. I expect to see the Canucks in the playoffs. Obviously, they've done so well. So, hopefully it'll be a fun storybook ride. Who knows what happens and how far they can take it. But appreciate your time jumping in the box. Make sure you follow Carol. Pool 88 on X, or if you still call it Twitter. We'll be back again with more episodes of In the Box with the PHWA writers right here with Willie Ramirez. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.